Section 585. Deleted portion. Now, I have some personal remarks for you, and then, since we are well embarked upon our chapter, and since it is late, I will let you go. Rob said, I am doing all right. Seth said, give us a moment.
The idea of permanence in your mind is strongly connected with more representational work. You think of the old masters, for example, the figure work. You are concerned that the freer style itself implies a lack of permanency, in that you wonder how well others will relate to it as time passes. Rob noted, this is excellent information, and as has happened before where Seth discussed art, implies knowledge that I don't believe Jen would express in such terms. Seth said, this, plus the feelings of the impermanency of the board account for the symptoms. The inner self is permanent regardless of its form, of course, and the encounter of a man with himself is primarily an interior one. Do you have questions? Rob said, well, I can resolve this, can't I? Seth said, you can indeed. Rob said, I didn't want to be rigid in my ideas and the way I expressed them. Seth said, you did not encounter the difficulty in sketch form, you see, only when the idea of permanency in a painting came into issue. The remark I made about the inner encounter will help you reconcile the two positions. Rob said, I thought this painting would allow me more of an expression of fantasy than I usually permit myself. Seth said, it will indeed. It will in itself help break down any inhibiting, rigid factors in any of your work. Rob asked, what part of me is raising hell, then? Seth said, you can accept completely abstract work and do it well, though you would not be satisfied with it for a great time. Rob said, true. Seth said, this sort of a painting, however, that uses figures or objects, but not in representational form, bothers you. While you are strongly attracted in sketches of the same nature, there is no dilemma. You allow the intuitive self-spontaneous expression in those sketches. It is only when you transpose the same ideas onto painting and a more permanent form that you become uneasy. Rob noted, excellent information. Seth said, give us a moment here. You treat the exterior sense of order you perceive in objects, and when they are distorted, this brings a sense of alarm. Again, in paintings, not sketches. In this line of feeling, the distortions, artistic distortions, represent those points where you feel that the irrational could enter in, or untruth. To portray an object faithfully represented a kind of truth to you. To represent it differently than it was, represented at best a half line. This from the exaggerated and distorted ideas of order that surrounded you as a child on the part of your father. Rob noted, excellent. Part of this was quite unknown to me consciously, but is the kind of data that once realized falls instantly into place. They said, intuitively you knew better, and when painting was concerned, your career, you did not allow yourself the freedom. In sketches, which were fun and to you not permanent, you permitted the spontaneity. I will have Rupert put out his cigarette and continue. Ralph said, okay. Ralph noted I had been coughing again. They said, your father always tried to fix objects that were broken. To some extent, you carried this with you, so that objects or figures not painted correctly in those terms should be fixed. The order seemed broken. Ralph said, yes. Ralph noted this was very perceptive. They said, there will be no problem, however, as you become aware of these connections. You looked for great order, to create in painting an ordered universe, to find perfection that ideally you felt should be in the exterior world, and yet was lacking. You discovered that order itself springs from spontaneity, and this is your first real attempt to bring the two together. Do you have any questions? Ralph said, no, I think that covers it. I can make the connections now. Ralph noted, Seth had paused, so I asked a question I hadn't particularly planned on. The elements behind the question have been explained. Ralph asked, what do you think about those discussions Jen and I had earlier in the week about giving her more freedom? They said, they are very beneficial and issues that should be brought into the open. When they are repressed, they gain a charge out of all proportion, to which overreactions can then occur. There is no reason for him to confine himself to psychic books alone, in any case. I have myself repeatedly urged him to write more poetry. He must, of course, make his own choice as to the extent to which he wants to commit himself to our work. His feelings in all directions bearing on these issues should be aired, acknowledged, discussed, and then action taken in line with what he discovers. Ralph noted, this is an admirable acceptance on Seth's part of whatever developments occur. He is probably more acutely aware of possibilities than I am, although I have been turning them over at a great rate lately. Some things are bound to be changed, I feel. It's too early for decisions to be given here, and perhaps no hard and fast rules are needed, but some changes in attitudes are, certainly. I don't mind stating that I felt sadness now, as I contemplated some of the alternatives I had been entertaining lately. They said, a vacation in any case is needed, quite naturally. He need not plunge into another contract. For example, rigidity of attitude, setting up either or is a problem, and you can help him recognize when he does this. Ralph asked, is he still concerned about me, resulting in a slowdown of movement on his part? Ralph noted, in earlier deleted material, Seth told us that Jane's stored physical motions since the publication of the Seth material was, in part, caused by her desire to slow down to give me a chance to catch up to her own success through my painting. They said, to a large degree, that has been taken care of, because of your own reassurances. Rob noted, but she moves as slowly as before. I thought, I am just wondering where that leaves the impetus for the slow motion then. They said, the pressure put upon him by himself, and the disgust by you, having to do with his own work. The unresolved and partially buried attitudes that you have written down upon your paper. Rob noted, our creed. They said, and the fact that many of these were so repressed that he would not think about them himself, much less discuss them with you, unless he was driven to it. Rob noted, my feelings exactly. Rob asked, have we covered all major points in that paper? They said, you have indeed. The ones now important. And now I bid you a fond and therapeutic good evening. Rob said, thank you, Seth. Your help is appreciated. It really is. Good night.